Hello everyone, this is Ron Ratner, Senior Associate Commissioner of the Northeast Conference. We are here for the inaugural NEC On the Run podcast. This is the countdown to tip-off edition. We're just days away from the start of the 2015-16 basketball season. Very lucky today, we have a special guest in studio, Ryan Peters from Big Apple Buckets, a terrific blogger, an NEC basketball supporter. Thanks, Ryan, for making the trip here to Somerset.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to these NEC studios, and the office is really nice here.
We're breaking them in today. We have a big basketball podcast for you today, and we're going to start out today with going through the major storylines that are going to come up this year in NEC hoops, as well as the keys to success for all the NEC men's basketball teams. All right, let's get things started here, Ryan, on NEC Front Row. No time to waste. I want your three major storylines this year in NEC hoops. Go.
I think the first one is, can Robert Morris repeat? Can they replace the production left behind with, Marquise Reed, Lucky Jones? A lot of coaches kind of off the record to me have kind of wondered, Lucky Jones did everything for them, so can Andy Toole figure out a way to replace that production? He has a couple rookies coming in, and Matty McConnell, who had a great exhibition, 7 3-pointers. Isaiah Stowe was highly recruited. Andy was able to lure him to Robert Morris. That's going to be an interesting storyline. The second one for me is, can Jack Perry bring LIU Brooklyn back to relevance? The reports on Jerome Frink so far are outstanding. Now, he hasn't played a single game at LIU, but he has previous Division I experience at FIU. Played really well under actually Rick Pitino's son, who now coaches up in Minnesota. The key with them is the point guard position. Can they replace the production that they lost with the Icelandic kid, Elvar? I'm not good with Fredrickson. Santil is a point guard that Jack likes a lot, a really good defender. He previously played at South Alabama. Iverson Fleming is obviously a veteran. Can they get back to that top 3 team that they used to be when they had Julian Boyd, Jason Brickman, and Jamal Osler? And finally, the last storyline is a lot of production left the conference. There are a lot of players that were on the all-conference teams last year that either graduated or left for other reasons. Can the young crop come up and kind of replenish the conference? I mean, there's a bunch of terrific sophomores in this league right now when you're talking about Cam Broom, Hermanson for LIU, Marquise Towns for FDU, Darian Anderson as well. Junior Robinson, I think, gets overlooked a lot as a 5'5" point guard who had a terrific freshman year. Can they basically bring the NEC back to previous levels where they could maybe be a 14 or 15 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think it's the start of something good happening right here in the league. And going back to your first point about Robert Morris, they say that every year. They said it when Velton Jones left. They said it when Jeremy Chappelle left. They said it when Carvel left.
Yeah.
Andy Toole and company, they always find a way. So it's good that you pointed that out, but I just have a feeling in the end they'll be there.
He's a tremendous coach. I mean, I went back and looked at games that were decided by 4 points or less or in overtime, and in the last 3 years, Robert Morris in those games is 19-7. One of those games, by the way, was against Kentucky in the NIT. 2 of them were last year in clutch situations when they beat St. Francis Brooklyn in the NEC title game, and then when they beat North Florida in the NCAA tournament. He's just a tremendous coach, he's a tremendous recruiter, and he gets the most out of his kids.
Lesson as always, never count out Bobby Moe. All right, now it's time to take a tour around the league. We're going to go rapid fire here. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you 10 teams. You're going to give me the key to the season for each of those 10 teams. Let's start alphabetically. Let's go with Brian.
Brian, it's replacing De'Ame Starks in his shooting. Hunter Ware looks to be an impressive recruit that Tim O'Shea brought in. Can he step in and replace that production?
All right, we heard Brian. Let's go to Central Connecticut. Typically one of the top programs in the league. Struggled the last couple of years. What do they have to do to get back up top?
Howie Dickman's in such a unique position right now. He has 7 newcomers coming in. He's never had that before in his 20 years at Central Connecticut. So can they get some depth? Can some of those freshmen and those newcomers come in and play right away and kind of build a foundation for Howie for maybe the next few years?
All right, let's move into New Jersey. Very young team that Greg Herendez put together there. Showed some flashes, especially in non-conference play last year. What do they have to do?
Yeah, I love what Herendez is doing with this roster. One thing they have to do to get better this year, though, is protect the defensive glass. They have Tyrone O'Garrow coming in. Mike Holloway's an impressive New Jersey recruit that Herendez has signed. Can they protect the glass? Can they be better defensively, especially inside the paint? If they could do that, they're going to be a factor.
LIU Brooklyn ruled this league for 3 straight years from 2011 to 13. Looks like they're back on the upswing again. Where's Jack Perry and those guys going to be this year?
Again, it comes down to point guard play. I think they have all the other pieces 2 through 5. Can Akeem Santil, can Iverson Fleming, can they come in and fill the point guard role? If they can, LIU Brooklyn's a top 4 team in my opinion.
Mount St. Mary's, Jamie and Christian's done a fabulous job in his 3 years at Mount. What do they have to do to get back into the NEC title game?
Well, can Jamie and Christian go back to his mayhem roots like he did in his first year? Last year he had a long and athletic team, especially in the forward and the power forward positions. This year he's got he has the guard play, has more experience. Can he speed up the tempo once again? Can they score 80 points per game? Can they extract 15 to 20 turnovers? Will they jack up a ton of threes? Can Jamie get back to the mayhem roots, which is a very tough thing to scout against if you're an NEC opponent?
We go from the preseason favorite Mountaineers to Robert Morris, the defending tournament champion. Yes, there's been some turnover there. They've won postseason games 4 years in a row. Andy Toole and company, what's your prediction for them? What do they need to do to get back on top?
One key to them is, and a lot of people talk about this on Twitter now, is can Kevon Stewart take that next step? He had a terrific NEC tournament last year, averaged 10 points, 6 assists, and 3.5 steals per game. Can he continue that momentum and become an elite point guard in this league where he's shooting really well from outside and opponents really have to respect them, and that kind of opens up the driving lane for him even more.
Sacred Heart appears to be a team on the rise. I like what Anthony Latina has done with this team the last couple of years. What do you see from them? Yeah,
unfortunately right now they're a little banged up, so the key with them is health. They're probably going to lose Devon Barnett for the season. So the key is, can Jordan Allen, can Tevin Falzone, can Kane Broom, can all those key components stay healthy? And if they can, I think Latina has a really solid 7 to 8 man rotation, and then they would certainly be a factor.
To me, the best story in the NEC last year was the rise of St. Francis Brooklyn, of Remsen Street, getting to the title game, playing in the postseason. But they lose a couple of key players from that team. Where do you see them this year?
Yeah, never count Glenn Breakout. He's a terrific coach. But the key is how are they going to replace the scoring? Losing Cannon, losing Jones. Can Tyreek Jewell step up and be a consistent off the guard scorer? Can Gled Sanabria step in and be a really good point guard? And can Chris Hooper, be that back to the basket kind of low post threat that I know Glenn Brake envisions him being? That's going to be the key there.
Going out to Loretto, St. Francis University. Rob Crimmel's done a really good job. They've made it. They've won NEC tournament games each of the last 2 years. They lose Earl Brown. Are they still in the hunt?
Yeah, the key is making up for his production. Basile Thompson's a really talented, athletic power forward. Can he kind of step in and be that guy? And Ronnie Drinnan had he took a step back last year as a senior. Can Ronnie Drinnan come in and be that productive leader that I know Rob Crimmel's counting on? And then Malik Harmon needs to be a little more consistent as a point guard. He certainly has the talent to excel. So if those 3 guys can play really well, I think St. Francis, the Red Flash, will be really good.
Wagner was at the top of this league, or near the top of this league, for a few years in a row. Last year, a lot of new guys, a lot of newcomers. Throw them out in the fire. Bashir Mason, what do you see from them this year?
Well, Bashir brought in some transfers, guys like Michael Carey, Henry Brooks from Penn. He's hoping we'll inject some leadership into this program. Last year he had too many underclassmen players to count on. This year he has more, veteran leadership, and hopefully those guys can kind of provide an example in the locker room and kind of lead this young group, which honestly is a really talented bunch. When you're talking guys like Ramon Saunders, Corey Henson, JoJo Cooper, I really like the group. Just can they all mesh together now, the young and the old, and become a factor like they were 3-4 years ago.
All right, you heard it from Ryan Peters. We did a little wind sprint through all 10 NEC teams. What do they need to do to be successful this season? It's time to take a look at who the top players in the league will be this year. So I'm going to go right to the expert. I'm going to go to Ryan and ask him, Ryan, in March, who will the Rookie of the Year be in the NEC?
I think a lot of people right now are targeting Sacred Heart's Quincy McKnight. Not only because he has the talent, he was probably the best freshman signing that Sacred Heart has ever had in terms of how he was recruited, but also the opportunities there. You lose 3 guards, you lose Evan Kelly, Phil Gaetano, Steve Glowiak. So there's obviously a need there, but he's a guy, a very versatile guard who's going to fill up the stat sheet for Anthony Latina. He's going to play from day one. He's going to be playing 30 minutes a game, so I think he's the guy.
After Kane Broom, it wouldn't surprise me. Latina's done a very good job recruiting the last couple of years. Let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. I think I know who you're going to say here, but go for it.
It's pretty obvious. I mean, how could you go against Amity Fall? Last year, he was 10th in the country, 10th out of all 351 Division I teams. He was 10th in the country in block rate. I mean, he's just a tremendous asset to have defensively, protecting the rim for Glenn Breaka.
Definitely a game changer on the defensive end of the floor for the Terriers. Now's the big one. Let's go. NEC Player of the Year will be?
Again, I'm not going out on a limb here, but it's got to be Rodney Pryor. If everything goes right for Robert Morris, he's got to be the guy. He's the leading returning scorer in the conference, averaged 15.6 points a game last year. Lights out from behind the arc. I believe he shot 43% from there. Opposing NEC coaches have told me he's a nightmare to game plan for. He's a very difficult player to keep in line. He could shoot from the outside. He could drive to the lane. He's a multi-talented player, and there's a reason why he's my Player of the Year pick.
And he's smooth. He looks good doing it too.
Smooth.
All right, we heard it. Pryor, Fall, McKnight, the best of the best come March. Last year in the NEC, there was an influx of new talent. Saw lots of playing time. Lots of teams were playing freshmen, sophomores. We got more newcomers coming in this year. Who will make the most impact?
Quincy McKnight's my first pick for Sacred Heart. There's a big hole at the 2 and 3 guard right now for Anthony Latina. He's going to come in and play, and we saw that in the exhibition recently against Bridgeport. He scored 13 points, had 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. He could defend his position. He's going to do a little bit of everything for Anthony Latina. Another guy, a couple transfers coming in, Tyrone O'Garrell for FDU. They have a big need in the front court, and he's a guy who had previous success at Monmouth. Very good rebounder, a little undersized, but at 6'6", he's a tremendous athlete. He's going to be able to protect the rim, do a little of that. Jerome Frank is a guy who's getting a ton of hype at LIU Brooklyn right now. He's drawing Julian Boyd comparisons, dare I say, and it's a little unfair to Frank, but I mean, he certainly has the scoring talent to do that. I could see a 15-8 kind of season out of Frank. And then finally, I'm going to give you a surprise guy that absolutely no one's talking about. St. Francis Brooklyn has this redshirt freshman, Keon Williams. He's a guy that I know Glenn Breaka likes a lot. He feels like they lost a couple of good defensive role players in Kevin Douglas and Lowell Omar last year. So I think Keon Williams is going to come in and he's going to be that kind of defensive presence, that solid role player that Glenn really needs at both the 3 and possibly the 4. And if he could learn to score, if he could shoot it a little bit better, he's going to be a guy who could definitely make the all-rookie team.
It wouldn't shock me. Glenn's always finding the unheralded recruits, turns them into stars. You heard it here, newcomers that will make an impact. Now, time for my favorite category, the under-the-radar players. Guys that don't get as much publicity, but they're integral to their team's success. Who are your under-the-radar guys for the year?
First guy is, he plays for Bryan, Hunter Ware. He's always had tremendous ability to play. The problem was last year he had De'Ami Starks and, playing off the ball. Now that Starks is gone, Hunter Ware, has shown an ability. He has the recruiting pedigree. His brother played at Georgia as a point guard. And last year when Hunter Ware got the time, he did produce. In games that he played over 20 minutes per game, he averaged 12.5 points per game, shot in the mid-40s from the field. I think he's going to be a really good player for Tim O'Shea. Another guy is Junior Robinson. He's probably the best athlete in the conference. I mean, the kid's an athletic freak. 5'5", but he has a tremendous vertical. He's super quick. He could shoot 38, 39, 40% from 3. He's another guy that no one really talks about, but I really see him being a super sophomore in the league this year. My third guy is a guy all he's done is averaged. He's been in the top 6 in rebounding last 2 years and the top 2 in block shots, and that's Brandon Peel. He's obviously going to be critical for Howie Dickerman and how Central Connecticut does this year if they could actually elevate their status as a program. I think he's a tremendous guy that no one really talks about. And then finally, Anthony Latina loves Jordan Allen as a senior. Unfortunately, they lose Devon Barnett to an injury, but I think that only elevates Allen's game, and he could definitely be a candidate for a lot of double-doubles moving forward as the primary power forward in that lineup.
Those are 4 good ones. I'll give you 2 more. St. Francis Brooklyn's Chris Hooper, and St. Francis U's Greg Brown. Greg Brown doesn't have all the stats, but he does all the little things. We'll turn our attention to the schedule now, specifically non-league play. Ryan, what are some of the games that we should be looking out for this year? Maybe upset potential or just really good games?
Well, let's start with the season opener. Wagner opens the season at St. John's, and I know St. John's has had a little bit of trouble in this preseason. It's going to be very interesting to see how that team matches up, and in particular, I'm looking forward to see Mike Amon play. He was a beast last year in the paint. I think his last 10 games, he averaged 12 points, 10 rebounds per game. I want to see how he matches up against the Johnnies down low. Another game I'm looking at is, Robert Morris always has an intriguing schedule. This year they actually host the preseason Patriot League favorite in Lehigh. And Lehigh also has the reigning player of the year in Tim Kempton. I'm really curious to see how Robert Morris stacks up with the best of the Patriot League. Another team too, Mount St. Mary's always has a brutal non-conference schedule. But one game I think they have a shot this year is when they go to play at the University of Washington. Washington's been prone to upsets in the past. They lost to Stony Brook last year. 3 years ago, they lost to Albany. They've lost to UC Irvine. So they've dropped some mid-major games at home. I could definitely see, the Mount Mayhem attack really upsetting things for Washington and Jamie and Christian getting an upset out there. And then finally, Bryant has a couple intriguing games. They go out to play. They play the Ivy League's best this year on the road. They play both Yale, the preseason pick in the Ivy League, and then Harvard. Harvard loses a lot from last year's team, but they're a tremendous team that Tommy Amaker has really built up. That's also a nice stepping stone for Bryant.
It's a good job, Ryan. That Robert Morris Lehigh game will be on NEC Front Row. And, I give credit to Jamie and Christian. Those first 4 games he has on the schedule, we have Maryland, Ohio State, Washington, Gonzaga. Let's hope that Washington game, there's an upset in there somewhere. Good games coming up this year. Can't wait to get it started. Time to turn our attention to conference play now. Now, I know a couple of your top games of the year are TV games, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the NEC's 34-game TV package this year, which is the biggest in league history. What do you got?
I love all the games, honestly, but if I had to pick out a couple, Robert Morris and Mount St. Mary's is intriguing to me. These two teams have had some great battles over the last 3 years. Mount St. Mary's last won the NEC championship on Robert Morris's home court. I always love watching the contrasting styles. Andy Toole versus Mayhem, always very intriguing to me. And then LIU Brooklyn coming back to the Pope Center. I always love the two Brooklyn rivals going at it, a few blocks apart from each other. They always have some great games. It's always a lot of fun to watch that.
Now those 2 games are national TV games. The Mount and Robert Morris will be playing on January 28th on CBS Sports Network. Then the 2 Brooklyn teams will be going at it February 15th on ESPNU, a matinee day game at 1 p.m. Anything else? You got another game?
As a Sacred Heart alum, I guess we have to go back to the scene of the crime, Sacred Heart at Bryant. The Joe O'Shea shot, in the double overtime thriller in the first round of the NEC tournament last year. I always love watching these two teams play because, Anthony Latine is an offensive guy, Tim O'Shea is an offensive guy. It's always high scoring, always a lot of fun to watch the back and forth.
Yeah, from those games you mentioned, that Mount Robert Morris rivalry, I like that it's back because in the 2000s, say 5 to 10 era, that was the most heated rivalry in the NEC when Tony Lee and Chappelle and Jeremy Good and the Atupums were there. That was heated. I was at all those games. They were great. So looking forward to those matchups this season. All right, it's time for the big question now, Ryan. This is the ultimate putting you on the spot because we're going to go back and watch this on March 8th and see if you're right. Who will be the 2 teams playing for the trophy and going to the NCAA tournament in March, and who will win?
I think the top 2 teams right now will be Robert Morris. I mean, how can you pick against Andy Toole and the history, what they've done in the past couple of years? I think they have enough, coming back, as far as newcomers, and Matty McConnell, Isaiah Stiller, 2 really good freshmen that should be good. Billy Giles, a JUCO that's going to come in and, fill the production loss from Lucky Jones. I like them, and also I'll give you a little bit of a sleeper pick. I really think they're going to play LIU Brooklyn in the finals. I think Jack Perry has that program really going in the right direction, and if Jerome Frink can be the transfer that everyone's expecting him to be, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league.
All right, you heard it. Robert Morris, LIU, according to Ryan Peters, this March. I would like to thank Pioneer Pride for coming in today in studio, our first guest in our new studio. You can find Ryan's writing on Big Apple Buckets. You can also follow him on Twitter at Pioneer_Pride. Ryan, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, the season is about to start. This was the NEC on the Run. Countdown to tip-off.